encounters for the first time.
He saw a monster in his room. It scared the crap out of me.
When uninvited evil terrifies the living.
I didn't know what was happening to me, but it scared me.
I'm like, this is insane.
I buried this for nearly 30 years.
Be prepared to be afraid.
This is interview with Felicia Jones. Take one, Mark.
It was a necessity to have a large home because we have a large family. When we went to view the house, it was very beautiful, had a lot of potential for our family, and I was very excited when I seen it. It had 6 bedrooms, and it was perfect.
The house also came with an extra, unexpected feature.
He did not know anything about the previous owners. A neighbor that has lived here for years had asked me if I had ever met Eleanor. She said Eleanor is a lady that lived in this house that was a nanny, and that Eleanor died in the living room at this house. She told me that this house was haunted by her.
Despite the neighbor's story, the house seemed too perfect to turn down.
When we first moved to the house, I felt like I was being watched, and I would get the chills, but then I would think, am I crazy? There's nobody here but me. I would get ready for work, and I would see like white blurs upstairs, and they would be moving. One morning, I watched a white blur go into my son's bedroom. They were like human size, like a cloud, I mean, just like float. My husband thought I was crazy. He thought I was seeing things because the neighbor had put it into my head.
Soon, other strange things started to happen.
I heard people trying to talk over each other, it sounded like. I thought it was the neighbors talking over each other. So I looked out the window because my neighbors go out on their porch to smoke. When I looked out the window, there was nobody there. So I laid down and I went back to bed. A few hours later, I was woken up by the same thing. At first, I thought people were playing tricks on me, but then I come to realize later, there's something going on in this house. I woke my husband, Kevin, up. Like always, he dismissed it. After all that happened, I thought maybe I was going crazy, seeing things. Because of the neighbor again telling me this house was haunted.
But Felisa wasn't imagining things, as her son Rob and her grandson Carson would discover when they stayed over one night.
Come on. Let's go, buddy.
In the middle of the night, we heard a loud crash, and it was my son, Rob, running through the baby gate. Kevin and I jumped up out of the bed, came out.
They're down here.
Rob was frantic. My son was shaking.
What happened?
He said, I was woken up by an old lady. She was in my face. When I woke up and I turned and grabbed Carson, her face just disappeared. Rob knew that it was a ghost. He said, I will never, ever sleep upstairs again. I was scared. And Carson had 103 fever. Only thing I could think of is what the neighbor said about Eleanor. I was told that Eleanor was a nanny. We believe she was waking him up to tell him that Carson was sick.
What is she doing now? This is getting out of hand. I can't believe this.
Believing the spirit of Eleanor to be benign or even friendly, Felisa and her family decided to try to tolerate the entity.
A month after we moved in, the activity in the house started to change. I started to get afraid. Instead of at ease about Eleanor, I started to get scared about other things happening in the house. Caden is my great nephew. I've babysat him from birth till the age of 5. He was a happy, great, fun little boy to be around. But one night, when Caden was about 4, he started to experience things in the house also.
The new activity was darker, malevolent, and dangerous. They started to wonder, maybe Eleanor wasn't so kind-hearted after all.
Caden would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. He said that he saw a monster in his room.
When Felisa Jones and her husband bought a large house in a quiet neighborhood, little did they know that the house had some uninvited guests. A good one and a bad one. And it didn't take long for a monster to make its evil presence known, terrorizing Felisa's 4-year-old great-nephew.
Caden was screaming, the monster scratched my back. And Caden had scratches on his back. It scared the crap out of me when I saw those scratches on Caden's back. I wondered where Eleanor was and why Eleanor wasn't protecting him.
A spirit would have to be very powerful in order to scratch someone, because basically a spirit will need to reach through their level of existence into our level of existence. That takes a lot of strength, a lot of energy, a lot of power.
Caden went from so happy, and then when all that started to happen, he started to look sick and lethargic, and he looked terrible.
Felisa decided to find out exactly who or what was attacking Caden.
We had cameras installed that have motion sensors on them. So when you move in front of them, the cameras turn on and start to film. One night, the camera in my foyer went off, and I went to look, and it looked almost to me like it had a long curled nose, and it looked very skeletal, scary-like, very scary. I thought, what can I do to get this thing out of my house?
Felisa contacted paranormal investigator Rick Cosner and his team for help.
When Felicia called me, she told me she was having some problems with her nephew who had been staying with her. Well, anytime a child's involved, I have a concern over that. Felicia did send us some video of her CCTV camera, which was very interesting. It did show that there was an entity or spirit of some sort there.
When Rick saw the image, it was a very demonic spirit, and he said we needed to get it out of there.
Demons are supernatural beings, fallen angels. Demons can be very violent because their ultimate goal is your death.
I wanted that very dark spirit out of my house. I was frightened.
When we went there, we came with my wife and a Catholic priest who performed the cleansing on Felicia's house. When you perform a cleansing, the priest will go to each room and he says prayers. He sprinkles holy water over beds, over pretty much everything. He seals off the mirrors so the spirits can't hide in mirrors. And this is what we use to get rid of negative spirits.
Rick and his team struggled to find evidence of any demonic spirits or how they got there. Rick began to worry that the reason they couldn't find a trace of the demon was because it was hiding from them.
How do you feel?
This meant there was only one way to get rid of it: perform an exorcism of the whole house.
An exorcism had to be performed because cleansings do not work on supernatural beings. Only an exorcism will work.
It is time.
When Rick started to do the exorcism, my house started to smell like sulfur.
The sulfur is a good sign that the demon is located in the house someplace.
In the name of Christ, we demand you to be gone. God demands you to be gone. The saints demand you to be gone.
God demands you to be gone. The saints demand you to be gone. And there's literally a literature of things that you read to call upon all the saints.
In the name of Christ, we demand you to be gone. God demands you to be gone. The saints demand you to be gone.
When they fight the exorcism, things will be thrown, things will be shaken. They will let you know their presence and how angry they are.
The saints demand you to be gone. Get out of my house! Christ, we demand you to be gone. God demands you to be gone. God demands you to be gone. In the name of Christ, we demand you to be gone.
The smell immediately stopped after the exorcism. When the smell dissipates, it's usually a sign that the demon is moving out of the home.
Thank you, Father.
I felt a sense of peace after Rick came in and blessed the house. The house felt at ease. I felt safe again.
I definitely felt a difference in the house once the exorcism was finished. It just seemed lighter. The house seemed lighter, the air seemed lighter, there was no more smell.
Although one evil uninvited guest had been thrown out, another positive one still remained: Eleanor, the nanny.
There's still a lot of activity at my house. The stuff in this house has been going on long enough. The fear is gone. I've become used to it. I was raised not to believe in the paranormal, but I definitely do now. Because I have seen paranormal, I've seen the things in my house, I've seen things on camera. It's there, I see it.
Most people who encounter uninvited entities do so in their home. But sometimes, even the workplace can become a place of terror.
Paranormal Survivor, Dale's Haunted Restaurant.
I had just moved from Montreal and I was without a job. I applied everywhere, and this restaurant had called me to see if I was interested in waitressing. I was excited. I loved the building, the neighborhood, full of character and wood. You walk in and you're mesmerized. Everything about the restaurant was very, very appealing. So I definitely knew I wanted to work there and was very happy when they asked me to join on.
Soon after starting, Dale was given the responsibility of opening up the restaurant each day. It wasn't long before she'd discover why no one else wanted to do it.
When I would come in, it would be very dark. So I'd be the one to have to turn on the lights in the dark. My main goal was to get to the lights. But I always felt like there was someone with me. But walking through the building in the dark is very eerie. Not a very comforting feeling. And I kept thinking, okay, what are you doing? You know, you're fine, you're okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna do what I have to do.
Dale's uneasiness soon escalated into more than just a feeling.
I went into the restaurant because I had to get everything ready for the evening, and I'm always in there alone. It's always me just setting up until it's time. We moved the chairs out of the way so that we could vacuum or we could sweep. And usually if you're the one that's doing the sweeping or the vacuuming, you move the chairs. I left for 30 seconds, maybe to a minute, to go and grab the vacuum from our storage closet. And I came back. The tablecloths were on the table and the chairs were all down.
Dale Goss had taken a job working in a restaurant, but not long after starting her new position, bizarre things began to occur.
The quicker I could get out of the restaurant, I felt better about.
Frightened and alone, Dale was always relieved when her colleagues arrived, especially prep cook Sandra LaFerrier.
Sandra and I started working at the restaurant roughly at the same time when it had opened.
I've known Dale for about, 12, 13 years. She's very outspoken, says what she means. We bonded very quickly. It's just something between the two of us. She's an awesome person.
Sandra, Dale, and many others felt especially uncomfortable in the restaurant's storage room.
It's just something about that room. From the day I started, being in that storage room, it just had an eerie, creepy feeling that there was somebody there. A lot of people didn't want to go alone in it. Everybody, most of the staff felt very uneasy in that back room. I didn't like it. There's something just about that room, I just don't like it.
The next time Dale went into the storage room, her unease would prove to be well-founded.
So one particular morning I came in and I was the first one at the restaurant. I went into the back and to turn on the lights, and I got a very bad feeling. I felt very sick to my stomach. Something told me to look up. And it was in there that I saw the figure. He was a very large man. Just about died of a heart attack when I saw him. All the hair on the back of my neck went up. He had a big hat on and it looked like a trench coat. He looked angry. He looked like I shouldn't be there. It wasn't a person. My heart just jumped out of my chest. I thought that was it. I just walked very quickly to the kitchen, and at that time, like I told Sandra,
there's a man in there.
I thought, I'm gonna be killed here.
No, don't go in there.
She was scared, and she came running into the kitchen. She was all out of breath. And I'm there, Dale, like, what's wrong? She says, there's a man. She goes, I just saw a man.
And she said, well, that's pretty much impossible. The restaurant's not open.
There's nobody there.
She kind of laughed it off and thought, okay, you know, Dale, you're overtired. You've been working hard, whatever. And I'm like, okay. Everyone else, I didn't tell because I didn't want people thinking that I was weird and I was different. So I kept it to myself. I was the new kid on the block.
She didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to talk about it because I'd bring it up. Did something else happen? I don't want to talk about it. So.
Dale's terrifying encounter with the uninvited spirit soon became a regular occurrence.
I love my job. Everything about my job was perfect. But every day that I would come into work when I had the morning shift, that man was there. Every morning I came in. Always, always, always him.
The constant fear began to take its toll on Dale.
There's one day I came into work when Sandra was in the kitchen prepping.
That morning, Dale wasn't in a good mood, and she was a little more upset than she usually is.
I was tired, I was grumpy. And I was tired of being afraid of him. And that's when I decided, I'm not gonna let you scare me anymore. When I went in the back room, I didn't care.
Hey! Hey!
I'm gonna take control of this, and I yelled at him.
You want me? Here I am! Come and get me!
I was angry, and there was no fear, it was pure anger.
Come and get me!
I felt I was taking control, and I wasn't going to be afraid anymore. That lasted for a fraction of a second.
Dale Goss was being haunted by uninvited evil in the restaurant where she worked.
Here I am!
But after she confronted the demon,
Come and get me!
the terrifying encounters would take a truly frightening turn.
All of us stood and you heard heavy steps. And his face, if it was able to contort any more than it already was, it was of pure anger and hatred. That's when I realized, uh-oh. And I ran all the way to the kitchen, and by then I was out of breath, I was shaking, My face was drained of color, and I thought I was going to collapse.
Dale's emotional state at the time was like she was going to pass out. And I was trying to calm her down. Before she even told me anything, I'm like, okay, Dale, I said, like, take deep breaths. I said, you're freaking me out here. Calm down.
Dale hadn't escaped the entity yet.
And as she's telling me about this man, she's looking at me, and honest to God, her hair lifted.
I feel a chunk of my hair being raised up. And all of a sudden, my hair got yanked. I felt it. I mean, that hurt.
Somebody grabbed her hair, you know, like when you're going to give it a good tug, somebody did pull it.
I was 100% sure that the man that I had yelled at, he was the one pulling my hair.
And she goes, Sandra, did you see that? And I went, yeah, okay, like we need to get out of here.
Spirits may want to harm the living for many different reasons. Just as in the physical, there are people that wish to harm another person. The same thing happens on the other side. If they are earthbound, they still have their same personalities. They still have the same human emotions. So perhaps they're angry, they're frustrated, and they may try to harm a living human being.
When Sandra saw that, Sandra had no more doubt that the stories I was telling her were true.
After Dale was attacked, the spirit activity escalated dramatically.
Many people had seen shadows walking by. People would see a puff of smoke upstairs at the bar area. There was witness of a little girl running through the restaurant, which I too have seen her.
The uninvited paranormal activity became so intense that staff quit in fear and the restaurant was forced to close.
I was only relieved to not be working at the restaurant, was knowing I wouldn't see the man anymore.
After years of lying empty, the restaurant reopened.
Came by a few times just to see how everything was going. I had asked the owner what had happened to the man. He had informed me that his wife had done a cleansing a few years ago and had asked all the negative and bad spirits to leave. It felt a lot lighter, a lot airier. It just felt a lot more positive.
They asked Dale to take back her old job.
I decided to try to come back into waitressing. I was worried about going back into the restaurant, wondering if I was going to face him again. I was a little bit nervous because I was going to be there when we closed. I didn't want to tell the new people I was working with. I didn't want to turn on the lights. I went and I flicked on the lights. Nothing. The man was not there.
Spirits who are in pain often can't let go of the material world. They haven't found peace and are doomed, stuck in limbo, and showing up as uninvited guests.
Paranormal Survivor, Dana's Deadly Crush. Interview with Dana Hinckley, take 1. Marking.
That day we were at Mickey's father's funeral. He had come home. I felt withdrawn, sad, very emotional.
When we got back to the house for my dad's funeral, I was, feeling a little bit upset, overwhelmed, and we were just sitting at the kitchen table. It was a long couple days,
I heard a noise, and when I looked up, in the window I saw a face of a man. looked like death.
What's wrong? She goes, oh my God, it's behind you. And I turn around and, I didn't see anything.
Where?
And she's like, it's right there. Like, you don't see that. I'm like, no, I don't see it.
You can't see him? Sorry, sweetheart, I don't see anybody.
You could tell by the look of fright. She was visibly, like, scared.
Come here.
And then, it obviously just disappeared and it was gone. She was frightened. I mean, shaken.
It was actually really creepy. Who is this person, and like, what are they doing here, and why can't Mickey see him? And at that point, I knew that this had to be a ghost, but why is he here?
And then I'm thinking, well, maybe we were at the cemetery, something bad following us back.
The second time that I saw the ghost, he was up in the hallway. I happened to go upstairs to brush my teeth, get ready for bed. He was just standing there reaching out for me.
Dana Hinckley had twice seen a terrifying apparition in her home, and shockingly, the haunting would soon escalate.
And he had blood coming from his mouth on both sides. It was very scary. Didn't know what it was, didn't know what he wanted. That was the most scariest part, that I didn't know what he wanted.
I could just tell by talking to her, see it in her face, that she was stressed out about this.
I didn't want to go anywhere, I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep, and I couldn't sleep.
The now daily ghost sightings were taking a toll on Dana and Mike.
He's right there.
Where is he?
There. He's right there.
Right here? He's in front of me right now?
The ghost said that he knew him. He said, tell Mercury and Mike just to be quiet.
You tell Mercury Mike to be quiet. Where is he? What?
She's called you Mercury Mike.
And he said, how did you know that name? And I said, I didn't know that name.
How does he know that?
When she told me that, I was like floored, because Mercury Mike was a high school nickname that only like 2 other people knew about. Dana, had no idea that anybody ever called me that.
There's only 2 people in the entire world that know that name.
Mickey got the nickname Mercury Mike. It was a high school prank, actually. He was in the science lab, and there was mercury that was spilled, and the fire alarm went off. How would a ghost know something like this? Like, how would he know about our personal lives?
That chilling encounter left Dana and Mike with more questions than answers, and an overwhelming sense of dread.
I had a lot of anxiety. I couldn't eat. It was just very stressful. It just drained me. Like, I felt like I was sick. Like it was something that took over my body.
And it was about to get even worse for Dana.
We were sleeping. Everything was quiet. When I first opened my eyes, I didn't see anything, but I heard the footsteps. And then I heard the door creak. And then when he walked in, he was sitting at the end of my bed. I was really scared.
You're beautiful.
He just kept telling me that I was beautiful and that he needed my energy and to please help him. that he was not going to hurt me. I woke Mickey.
What's going on?
And I said, this man is touching me. And he's like, what do you mean he's touching you? And I said, he's touching me.
How do you not see him?
She was like pale looking, scared, you know, hands trembling, you know what I mean? You could tell that whatever was there was scary, was real, and had an impact on her. I actually felt bad because, you know, I believe everything she was telling me, but, you know, I can't see it, and I can't do anything to help.
I didn't know what was happening to me and why this was happening to me. But it scared me.
At that point, I'm like, you know what? This is insane. It's crazy. And I said, you know, let's reach out. I had a friend that was involved in paranormal stuff. So I said, you know, let me put a phone call out to my friend.
I'm a paranormal resolution expert. That's somebody who goes into a haunted location and brings in resources to attempt to identify what's causing the activity and then to come up with a game plan to resolve that activity. Over the past 15 years, I've worked hundreds of cases and worked with hundreds of clients.
Mark brought in psychic medium Virginia Centrillo to help out.
When I first arrived at the property, there was something that was disturbing to me. I couldn't understand what this energy was, and I realized there was a gentleman standing behind her. He was staring at me with a stare that he can see right through me, which kind of stopped my heart.
While Virginia walked through the home, Mark and his fellow investigator Joe set up in the master bedroom.
And we heard this weird hum that started in there. It sounded like it was right on top of us. Neither of us were making any noise, but this very distinctive hum had entered into the room.
The humming and whistling was coming through the whole house.
I heard some humming noises, some whistling noises. It was creepy, it was eerie.
When I was doing the walkthrough, this spirit was behind Dana. But he would throw a whistle or hum to another side of the house. It was very unusual, almost very childlike, like playing hide and seek. I had to really be creative on how I was going to handle this particular spirit, because he was determined to stay where he was and stay attached to Dana.
Quite often we sit in a circle to help build energy within the circle. Virginia calls on angels to help her connect with those people on the other side that she needs to speak with.
With plans to cross the spirit to the other side, Virginia learned some vital information about him.
He was letting me know that he was a user of very intense drugs. I felt this gentleman hurt himself somehow by overdosing on drugs by accident.
Some spirits might be afraid to cross over because they may have guilt or they might have fear of retribution on the other side.
Anybody who's sinned, anybody who is afraid of judgment, anybody who's experienced hardship or hurt sometimes stay instead of choosing to cross over out of fear.
I started to realize that Dana reminded him of someone, I believe an ex-girlfriend. And he would not get it out of his mind that this was not his girlfriend.
Virginia explained it to me that it probably became fixed on Dana because it was probably crying out for help.
So I had to come up with my team with some sort of way of removing him away from her. I asked Dana to go into the other room.
You better leave.
No! As she was going in the other room, one of our investigators was speaking to him.
There were drugs. What kind of drugs were they? No!
But the questions threatened the spirit.
And he kept saying, see that big guy there? He thinks he's something else.
I think he was afraid of Joe because I think that he knew that Joe was going to help me.
Joe was jolted in his seat.
No! I'll kill you!
After being fixated onto by a ghost, Dana Hinckley called in paranormal investigator Mark Keyes and psychic medium Virginia Centrillo. What they found was a spirit who felt no hesitation in resorting to violence.
Joe! I'll kill you!
Joe. It was like he got punched in the stomach.
It was just so scary because obviously if it's, willing and it's able to push or shove, someone like Joe, who knows what it could do, especially with Dana. It could have been disastrous.
I think that he was trying to let Joe know that he was the dominant guy there, that Joe had come to try to remove him, and that wasn't going to happen.
So I started to realize not only do we have this gentleman, but his addiction that we have to cut off of him in order for him to go into the light. We decided that we would send him love and light and just concentrate on him being well. And as my teammates were working on that and focusing on that, I was working with that other energy of that drug. I actually saw it being pulled from his back, that drug energy. And once we did that, he became softer. His facial expressions actually changed. We start to realize he's starting to understand.
Please.
There was a female energy, an older energy, that was reaching out for him saying, it's okay, come with me.
Virginia had said she witnessed this person through her vision go. The house felt immediately calmer.
I felt a sigh of relief that the ghost was gone, that it wasn't going to bother me anymore.
Knowing the spirit was finally gone, it was a big relief. All the anxiety and all the stress that we've been dealing with for months, it was finally over.
The ghost has changed my life because I know that they're out there. They're real and they can touch you. But I know through my faith, the faith is stronger than any ghost.